and welcome back. I hope you all had a brilliant weekend. Thank you yet again for the love and support on the previous video. Seriously appreciate it all. Hopefully you enjoyed that, as tomorrow the Tangent Finance DEX will be going live on Hedera, the first decentralized exchange, which is really going to kickstart this ecosystem growth and will enable you guys to pick up some of those HTS tokens which were fairly hard to get hold of in the previous weeks and months. For example, tokens like Dovu, as well as other similar projects, potentially even tokens like 𝗥𝗙𝗙𝗥𝗥𝗔𝗟𝗦 will be available via those DEXs from launch. We may also see some other tokens such as Source available if people holding it from Faucet drops decide to try and sell some of those tokens. So plenty of opportunity to get into these projects very early. I will be dropping videos tomorrow showing you guys how to use the swap feature primarily on the Tangent Finance DEX. So make sure you stick around for that one. If we jump into what's happening in the crypto markets across the board, majority of the projects are green, and that's because we have recently seen some fantastic sort of price action for Bitcoin, as we've just closed the weekly in the green after 9 weeks of pressure towards the downside, 9 red candles in a row. That has finally been snapped, and majority of these projects are performing quite well. That being said, I am still buying a ton of Hbar, obviously in anticipation of that DEX going live tomorrow, as well as the future DEXs and dApps being built. They will be coming out in the coming weeks, and I do think we'll start to see a bit of an explosion on Hedera in general. Of course, as well, we've got NFTs on Hedera that have been performing incredibly well, and there are more projects coming out of the woodwork as we speak. I'll be covering more of those in the future videos and probably showing you guys how to use tools like Hashgraph and ZUSE.marketplace to pick up some of these NFT projects if you want to get involved early. Of course, NFTs are always risky, so make sure you guys are doing your research beforehand and you know what you're buying. In terms of crypto sentiment, recent study from Accenture saying 73% of affluent investors in Asia could hold crypto by the end of 2022. That is a very large portion and shows that very wealthy people are using cryptocurrencies as either a hedge or a mainstay in their portfolios for either future gains or protectionism of their portfolios. We can also see the Premier League, so the BPL in the UK, has just filed trademarks for NFTs, digital collectibles, and crypto. And this is after we've seen some very big Spanish teams already move into the space with different tokens, NFTs, and projects in the cryptoverse. Of course, we're going to see more of this as things like affiliate marketing and marketing in general can be done very successfully via digital collectibles, crypto, NFTs, and Web 3.0 applications. We're going to see a lot of big names move into the space over the coming weeks. Just wanted to point this out. If any of you guys for some reason do hold Bored Ape Yacht Club NFTs or have been interested in the project, or actually for any future projects, it's just to make sure that what you're buying into is reputable and the creators are fully transparent. So here's a tweet saying there is a single private key out there that can mint an infinite number of new original Bored Ape Yacht Clubs at any time. If the token contract owner, a personal wallet, not a multi-sig, gets hacked or phished, you might see thousands of new Bored Apes minted and dumped onto the market. This is a function that sits inside that contract, which enables that wallet to mint an infinite number. And then rather ironically, back in June of 2021, they replied to one of these comments saying, "We were just talking about this. Obviously, we're never going to call that function again, and we're actually planning on revoking ownership in the next day or two." Well, that was over a year ago at this point, and they still haven't done so. So this just reiterates that point. You know, make sure the projects that you're getting involved in are fully transparent and you've done as much research as possible, as there's unfortunately bad actors, and also the potential for, as they said, even if the team themselves don't decide to call that contract, other people could if they somehow hacked the wallets or addresses, which happens. You know, this is crypto and there are bad actors in the space, and unfortunately a lot of different sort of phishing attacks happening all of the time. Make sure you're staying vigilant, protect yourselves as best you can. It's very easy to lose a lot quite quickly. If we look at the Bitcoin chart, as I said, there was that weekly candle we printed, which was green after sort of 9 weeks or so of downside momentum. Obviously we're surging quite well today, which is obviously a Monday, up at $31,356 at the moment, which is great to see. And hopefully we print a second weekly candle towards the upside. This is very positive news in general. If we actually flick over and we look at this Binance liquidations and open interest volume, I think I showed this in a previous video before, we can still see that open interest and price correlation is very strong, moving towards the upside, indicating the bottom could be in. This ties back in again with those Bitfinex long positions which continue to rise, indicating the whales were predicting that this was the bottom for the last week or so. We can also see Binance liquidations for short positions is still fairly consistent, not as high as that previous pump from the $13,000 level. Interesting thread here talking about Bitcoin again. I just wanted to run through this as it gives us some more macro sort of evidence or knowledge as to why we potentially could be at a bottoming position. The entire market risk sentiment is based on the yield. When the yield goes up, asset prices go down. So this is talking about treasuries. That's why we look at the US 10-year yield. As you can see, it's getting rejected and heading down. US 10-year is in a multi-year downtrend on monthly charts. Second, we look at the DXY, the dollar strength index. When people don't want to hold assets and bonds, they hold cash. Then the DXY goes up. When the DXY goes up, this means people are uploading their cash onto the market again to risk on. As you can see here, the DXY rejected that level of 103. Now, if we look at the S&P 500 index that rules the market, as you can see, the SP 500 has found support at its anchored VWAP. The weekly RSI is at an oversold level, meaning we are near the bottom or pretty near. 50 basis point rate hikes have been priced in. If the Fed do 75 basis point rate hikes, then we will see a lower low. Basically, this is saying if interest rates are increased more hawkishly by the Fed, naturally that wouldn't have been priced in by the markets, and we will see further pain towards the downside. Now, as for BTC, we're trading at the lows. The capitulation we had to 25k had some volume as the last summer bottom, was instantly bought up by whales. Who do you think sold? Retailers sold at a loss, and this is something that I preach obviously a lot on this channel. As long as you're in blue chip projects, sort of riding out that volatility tends to be the best way to do things, rather than sort of selling out and trying to time the market or getting scared and panicked. If you're getting very panicked about your positions, that probably says your positions were oversized and you couldn't deal with the risk. One of the biggest things is making sure that you sleep comfortably at night. If you've got a serious amount of money as a proportion of what you have in cryptocurrencies and you're worried about losing that constantly, then it's too much at the end of the day. You need to make sure you're comfortable with your personal risk. Bitcoin is also on the VWAP for the 2018 bottom. The whale long positions at an all-time high. This is what I was saying. They've been accumulating those future contracts for long positions, signaling the bottom was in. In conclusion, remain bullish on the bottom. The only thing that can tank the market now is the Fed. If CPI in June is really bad and the Fed do a 75 basis point hike, we will see a lower low on the indexes and maybe Bitcoin tanks, but the whales will accumulate all the sales. The rich accumulate at the low range, the poor accumulate at the high range and act as an exit liquidity. This is the way. Don't be exit liquidity. Don't short or sell at the lows. Who bought it all at 25k? It wasn't the retails. It was crypto Twitter influencers. It wasn't the crypto Twitter influencers. It was the big whales. Look through this thread, take it in. We are all shrimps. We don't move the markets. Institutions, banks, algos move the markets. Just try to identify range low and DCA in, sell at range high, take profit, hold for decades. It's kind of the strategy that I talk about a lot on this channel. Hopefully this guys gives you a bit more confidence as to what's happening in the markets. Unfortunately, as I keep saying, it is on a knife edge, and a lot of it is down to the sort of retail market performance over in the United States to do with inflation and the monetary policy that the Fed sets. As iterated in this thread by Seth here, you can see that if interest rates hike higher and faster than what was expected, we will see further pain to the downside. Again, more bullish news for cryptocurrencies in general. You can now pay taxes in Bitcoin very soon in Australia, which has come from the Gold Coast Mayor. So very bullish news again for cryptocurrency adoption. Right, sliding across to Hedera now, as there's been some more Hedera news. Interesting infographic here that I just wanted to show, which was the relative power per transaction for Bitcoin, XRP, and Hedera. So we can see there a Hbar transaction consumes 0.17 watt hours, equivalent to a single LED diode running for 1 hour. Obviously incredibly low energy usage. XRP is the same as an 8-hour watt single LED bulb running for an hour, and then Bitcoin at the top. Each transaction consuming 700 kilowatt hours, equivalent to 701 kilowatt space heaters running for an hour. Massive difference in energy usage, and one of the reasons that Hedera has this massive scalability edge over majority of the other chains that exist. As I said at the beginning of the video, each day the evolution continues. Great tweet by Stader here supporting Tangent. The Tangent DEX obviously does go live tomorrow at 8 PM CET. Make sure you guys stick around for that, as I will be dropping a video immediately. Covered dead pixels as well in the previous video. However, I needed to cover them again because the ghost passes have finally dropped to majority of those early winners. Of course, there's only 800 fixed supply, will not be any more minted in the future. These are now available on ZUSE.marketplace. I think the floor price is already around 4,000 Hbar. So if you guys did want to pick up some of these, make sure you head over to ZUSE Marketplace and grab some while they're still at these low floor prices. I do see these continuing to rise over time as the Dead Pixels main ghost collection will obviously increase in volume as more drops get released. These ghost passes will not, and they potentially may have additional utility stretching out into the future. Of course, as well, I do have some additional ones that I will be looking to do giveaways on in the future. So make sure you guys are sticking around for those, as there'll be a great chance to win some potentially very rare NFTs, depending on what happens. And I'm sure the project will continue to go from strength to strength. You see the fever here as well. Day one, these guys, all they do is put out bangers, and we can see that trending again on the highest 24-hour volume on ZUSE Marketplace. Dead Pixels, Ghost Passes, and then you can also see the main NFT collection down here, which is sitting at a floor price just shy of 2,900 Hbar. One of my favorite projects in the Hedera NFT space. Been covering them pretty much since day one. Fantastic dudes. Fantastic tweet here as well by Coinman, the 𝗥𝗘𝗙𝗦𝗧𝗔𝗠𝗦, talking about the Indian CBDC on Hedera. Going to run through this thread as there's plenty of great information. Phased introduction of the Indian CBDC to start this financial year. In February, India's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman announced plans to issue a digital rupee that uses blockchain and other technologies by March of 2023. There's a link there which I'll try and leave in the description for Ledger Insights. In the Hedera podcast from early 2021, Varun Dubey, global head of blockchain practice at Wipro, a global tech consulting firm based in India and the Hedera council member, says they have seen a lot of interest in CBDCs. Obviously, we've got CBDC sandboxes as well built on top of Hedera via MTech. There is a long trail of breadcrumbs suggesting that a digital rupee could potentially utilize Hedera Hashgraph or Hbar as a part of its architecture. This video I made over a year ago will post the articles referred to below. Again, I'll try and leave these links in the description for you guys, as they're very interesting. For the national blockchain, the National Institute for Smart Government, suggested using an enterprise blockchain or private version of Ethereum or Hedera Hashgraph, where government departments and industry associations run the validator nodes. So I guess this would be some kind of fork of the traditional Hedera Hashgraph chain, which is then privatized for their usage. A national permissioned blockchain is proposed, running a private version of Hashgraph. Hedera Hashgraph's technology is not open source, so that may prove expensive. Hashgraph is obviously now open source. We covered that a long time ago. So this perceived barrier no longer applies, and they shouldn't have to run a private network. They could openly utilize the native Hashgraph chain. What do we think? A digital rupee CBDC utilizing Hedera Hashgraph is on the way. Potentially, I think it's very possible. We've seen a lot of CBDC news coming out of South Korea as well, a lot of utilization and adoption of Hedera there. And we've obviously got CBDCs in the African nations being built on top of Hedera as well already. So what's one more in that stack? Hedera can pretty much do it all. Another announcement from SAUCERSWAP. Clearly, they are very serious about gearing up towards some kind of launch or next announcement. Another DEX preview has been released, and this one is talking about withdrawing liquidity. Again, this functions very similar to most other experiences on other chains. For example, PancakeSwap on Binance, Uniswap on Ethereum. Once you effectively have that liquidity pairing, you can go to the My Pools section. You click on the pool that you've entered. You can either select an amount, 50%, or a max amount, and then you can withdraw that liquidity from the pools. Integrates directly with Hashpack. You can execute that smart contract. Transaction will be processed successfully, and then literally within seconds, your tokens will be available directly back inside your Hashpack wallet. And then we can see here under the My Pools section, that pool that they just withdrew from has been removed. So that was a HBarX Galaxy pool. If we fast forward to them after it executing that smart contract, it no longer appears because the tokens are now back in their wallets. Interesting, we can see here some of those tokens that appear to be supported already. We've got Hbar, Jam, USDC, Hbar, Galaxy, HBarX. Looks like they're going all out in terms of token integration from the very beginning, which is brilliant to see. Anyway, guys, that wraps up this video. Like I said, make sure you're around for tomorrow. I will be releasing that video as soon as I possibly can, previewing and showing you guys how to use the Tangent DEX. The first one on top of Hedera opens up a lot of potential and possibilities for the ecosystem. Until the next one, I'll catch you then. Cheers.